Hello, everyone. It's Vasily Lambos, and we're back with another episode of Designing Digital Excellence. And when I think about excellence, there's no better person to talk about digital excellence than our special guest today, Brian Benstock. He's the general manager and vice president of Paragon Honda and Paragon Acura. Brian, welcome to the show, and thank you for your time today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Vasily. I appreciate it.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about your story. We talk about all the unconventional ways that people get into automotive. And I've been so captivated, listening to you on Clubhouse. Could you tell us a little bit about your story about how you got into automotive?
I started selling Hondas at a place called PS Honda on Long Island. It's when I was 22 years old. That's 1982. I was told if you're going to sell cars, you should do it on the North Shore of Long Island. If you're going to sell a car, you should sell Honda. And if you're going to sell Hondas, you should work for Paul Singer. And armed with that, I went and applied for a job from a woman named Nancy Phillips. I was 21 years old. I took a job in the car business until something better came along. And here I am all those years later. And I realized nothing better has come along. And I've been blessed to be in this wonderful industry for all those years, but 38 years, yeah.
Love it. Brian, it's amazing. I hear it every day, and everyone is like, how'd you get in the industry? And I got into it through such a unconventional way. I was just talking about digital marketing with someone at a company I worked at, Red Ventures, early in my career, and he's like, we got this company that we're trying to court. They're called Hendrick Automotive. I was like, Hendrick, never heard of them. And back then, I was just clueless because I was some digital nerd at some marketing company, but I was like, hey, I love cars, so let's do it. And that turned into a beautiful accelerated career, and I met amazing people like yourself. And so today, when we talk about digital marketing, we talk about digital excellence. We keep talking about how do we take the consumer, provide that consumer with the best possible experience from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. And lately, I've been super inspired by how you talk about end-to-end solutions in the automotive space. For dealerships listening in, or GMs or dealer principals who are interested in learning about what that means, could you talk a little bit about what the best ideal scenario would be for an end-to-end solution?
Well, we just recently landed an automobile on Mars. Or I don't know if it's an automobile, but we landed a vehicle on Mars. And if we can get a vehicle on Mars, somewhere in my brain, I believe that we can have a digital solution for people buying a car. We can buy everything that we want to buy on our cell phone today. The consumer experience has never been better than it is right now in all verticals. Yet in the automotive vertical, it's remained relatively unchanged. So I think there's a real opportunity there for us to relook at everything. And I think that's why you add so much value to the industry. You came in from a digital side, right? And then you became automotive, and now you're this hybrid, right? And I think that gives you a real edge. Provided you learn the basics of the automobile business, you can be a real player in this space, because there's a lot of people that are in the automotive space and learn digital, and you're coming from a different perspective. And I like your perspective better.
I appreciate that. And those the kind words there really mean a lot, Brian. When I think about, the paradigm in different industries, and I started my, digital marketing kind of prowess being more industry agnostic. And I think as you get into automotive, it's hard not to go very, very deep into automotive. And many times I think we overlook the details. And so when I think about the details, I think about this idea of digital retailing and how we're solving for digital retailing in the landscape today, whether that's a tool on your website or an ad that lands on a landing page with a third party. It's very convoluted. And so when we think about cutting down or simplifying the consumer experience, what are some areas that we can do that today as a dealer to greatly increase, our leads, or greatly increase our performance, at the store level?
You're a young man, and our career paths were very different, but they're very similar. I came into the automobile business a blank tape, a computer with nothing on the hard drive, and I went in and I saw these older men that were selling cars and supporting their families, and I said, "Wow, he's not really great, and he can pay for a house and his kids. If I get better than that person, I can do really well here." And I had no preconceived notions when I got into the business, but what I saw everywhere, there were these ways that they were doing things that didn't make sense to me. And sure enough, I went through a training program and they convinced me why it should take 3 days to get a car. You're coming in from the perspective the same way. You're coming in with a digital head and you're sitting there and you must be scratching your head. Then why do they do? Well, this doesn't make sense. I'm not seeing this anywhere else. And you're talking about digital retailing. And I'm going to ask you to change that. It's modern retailing. It's not digital retail. It's modern retailing today, and that's a part of any and all businesses, mix there. And so to separate, when you buy something on Apple, you don't say, well, I went to the digital retail store and I went online. I bought it from Apple.com. And isn't it amazing how they've taken an online experience and made that online experience very similar to a very good customer experience in the store? I think, we call that the click matching the brick, that online experience matches the in-store experience. And we're trying to do that at Paragon. And I think for us to have that solution, I'm going to say something most of my colleagues aren't going to like. We have to let go of almost everything we learned in the car business. We have to, as Toffler said in Future Shock, we have to learn, unlearn, and then relearn. And so we need to unlearn a lot of what we're doing because we keep building these hybrid models that are based so much on what we already know, the processes that we already know. And we're not necessarily looking at things from what we should have learned from what's going on in the customer experience now in the outside world. What is a customer experiencing at the other end of their iPhone, right? And are they able to get a price when they want to buy something on Amazon? Every time, every single time. But that's not the case on too many of our platforms. Call the manager for the special, call the BDC, can't give you a price, got to come in. And so we've got this online store. People go to the online store. We tell them you got to call us. That's a mistake. You got to call us. Then when they call, we try and set an appointment to get them to come in. And, I don't know that that's the way it's done on any of the major platforms, right? Let's take a look at Amazon. Can you imagine if they said, you got to come in? I can't give you the price. What? Doesn't make sense. Can you imagine if you went online at Amazon at 9:30 at night and said, sorry, we're closed. We reopen tomorrow morning at 8:30?
100%.
So how do we solve for that? And the other thing that I think these major guys have figured out, they can solve most of these problems without the need for someone to call somebody else. And so we really need to take a good look at that and say, why are we so dependent on the labor-intensive call process when many of these things can be customized and automated to better serve the customer?
No, I love that. And when I look at the industry as a whole and specifically a franchise dealer model, and we have so much influence from the OEM, from both a price, an incentive, and even a brand voice, perspective. And I try to package this to, like you said, hands off, or to simplify it, right? Make it a little bit more easier to mentally operationalize. Because I think we like to overcomplicate things in automotive.
Sure,
And so, in terms of brand voice, brand promise, your value proposition, the message that you're delivering to the local market, what do you think are ways that dealers could simplify that in order for them to be effective, in their communities and to create that consistency and brand separate from like the OEM?
You can't simplify it until you identify it. And I think most dealers, if you ask them, what is your brand essence? You probably have some people stumbling to give you a question. What's your core essence? What's your outer essence, right? And so for us, the brand essence is, we believe the future is frictionless. And your brand essence should be something that is unobtainable, right? Because there's always going to be some sort of friction in a transaction, right? So that's the essence of where we want to be, where we want Paragon to go, is a completely frictionless environment. Then outside of that, the core outside of that is what are we doing now? And we want to take friction out of every transaction, whether it's sales, service, new cars, used cars, telephone, BDC, internet. We want to reduce the amount of friction that's in there. And sadly, honestly, a lot of the friction is associated with profitability in the dealership. We built that friction in. So we have to find ways to be servant to the customer, to take the friction out, and to retain a reasonable return on our efforts And I think one of the ways you do that is you make it easier for people to buy your products. And by doing so, you may have a little bit less margin per transaction, but you've got a much larger audience.
That's phenomenal. So talk about a process, right? A process that has many lanes or many ways of feeding your cash registers as a business. We talk about vehicle exchange programs. I feel like it's been such an important topic for dealerships who are looking to, replenish their inventory, get more customers, retain customers. There's so many different levers you can pull in the vehicle exchange process, and I've seen a plethora of ways that dealers are doing this successfully. But there's no better person than I think Brian Benstock when it comes to vehicle exchange. You guys, I know, are like the top #1 for CPO dealer in the country, and I think you've done that for many years. And I was on a Clubhouse talk with one of your colleagues, and they were talking about the complexity in having your service department separate from the dealership location. And I'd love to hear, like, what was the tactical way that you guys slimmed down the consumer experience when it came to vehicle exchange?
Okay, so you're right. The vehicle exchange is something that's been sort of a very important part of my career. It really took off for me during the Great Recession, and you look at all these things that happened. But in 2008, there was a switch, right? New car sales crashed, and everybody said, "Well, you transition to used car sales, and where do you get used cars, right? If people are not trading in new cars, where do you go to get used cars?" So, I know what to do. We'll go to the auction. There are a bunch of people at the auction that look like me with their hand up in the air. And so if you want to acquire a used car, you had to overpay for it. Overpaying for a used car during a recession puts you in a bad spot, right? You're going to then struggle to get a margin on that car once you have it. And it occurred to me when I was in my service department, there are a lot of used Hondas coming into the service department. In fact, there are no Subarus, there are no Toyotas, there are no Nissans, 100% Hondas. And wouldn't it be great if we could make a value proposition to our customers whereby we could lower their current monthly payment and get them a brand new car by trading in their car with us? And the customers would get the benefit of taking advantage of the higher used car prices during the recession. And the knee-jerk reaction from customers is, "No, we're in a recession." Well, there's no better time to save money than we're in a recession. Don't let that tragedy go to waste. And I have to give a gentleman named Paul Nygaard credit for it. I was at NADA early in 2009 or 2008. And I said to Paul, "You run 71 stores at the Paul Miller Group. How do you do it?" And he gave me the BS answer. We hire good people and we train them right. Yeah, me too. But how do you run a monster like that? And he said, "I reserve the right to manage my business." And I mean, some of the most profound things in my life are the simplest. And I don't do this too often when I'm talking to somebody. I go, "Hang on," and I reached into my pocket and I got a business card. And I wrote on the back of that, "I reserve the right to manage my business, Paul Nygaard." And I put it in my pocket. And again, we're in relatively good times, pandemic excluded right now, but that was a scary time at the end of 2008, beginning 2009. And Paul reminded me that if the repossession man's coming to take a business away, they're going to take your name off the building if your name's on the building. They're not going to fire your manager. They're coming for your business, and you're responsible for it. And I thought that was profound, and it was a reminder. Hey, man, you're in charge. We put you in charge for a reason. Can you please be in charge? So I got back to the dealership and I said, we had been going to the service department and harvesting sales out of the service department. Catch as cats can. Oh, we're slow today. Okay, send someone to the service department. And they would go into the service department like a prisoner of war. And I decided, hey, this is really simple. I understand how this should work. And I took a gentleman named Leo and I said, "Leo, Monday you start in the service department." And I took a finance manager. I said to that gentleman, Hamed, you're working in the service department. And he said, "But I don't want to work in the service department." I said, I understand. I'm not asking you. I reserve the right to manage my business. If you'd wanted to work there, you'd have asked me. I am asking you to go. And he said, "Well, I don't want to do it." And I said, "Well, then where are you working on Monday?" "I reserve the right to manage my business." And I'm not a son of a gun, despite some people think I'm tough and mean. I'm not neither of those things. I said value proposition was I gave them 90 days of the same pay, saying, "Hey, I'll guarantee the pay you earn before you'll earn there in the service department." And we didn't put our toe in the water. But the vision was I put a full team there. and I put them in lab coats because who do you respect? You respect doctors, nurses, and lab coats. And they were actually, and they had clipboards, and they would go there and they ask some questions. Vasilis, you here for service today? Yes. Okay. Is there a payment associated with this car? There is. Hey, there's a program going on right now from American Honda where we can take you out of your current car, put you into a new car, and lower your monthly payment. Are you interested? No, I'm not interested. So that's great, and that's okay. But let me just understand that you'd rather keep your older car at the higher monthly payment. Can you just, for my own curiosity, can you just tell me why? Well, I'm comfortable with the car. I don't want to do anything now. And we're in the sales funnel, right? We're in the sales funnel. And the other reason that the vehicle exchange has such, and so we started doing that. And of course, we now generate anywhere from $300,000 to $700,000 a month in direct profit. And if you take the trade-ins and you look at that profit, it's substantially more than that per month. And take a look at the transaction. It's the most valuable transaction in the dealership. You acquire a used car at the price you want to pay. You're not bidding against anybody. You sell a new car, right? So you get the gross on that, front end gross, back end gross, and parts and finance. And then there's an RO on that used car you just took in. That goes through the shop. And for us, we certify every car that we can that's allowable by Honda. And that service RO is anywhere from $1,600 to $1,800. 72% of that is profit. And then, of course, we sell that used car, and you've got whatever your average gross is. We took the value of one of those transactions, and that's the new car sale, the used car sale, and the RO, and it was over $7,000 per transaction holistically. And when we looked at it that way, and I think we need to look at transactions holistically and the lifetime value of the customer. But at $7,200, well, the only question you should have after that is how many, right? How many of these can we do? But what else is important is it gives us alignment. And you talked about the factory dealer relationship briefly. This feeds the new car profit center. This feeds the parts department twice. This feeds a used car service department. It feeds the service department for labor on the new car. It feeds the service department for labor on the used car. It feeds your finance department with the lease or the finance on the new car. It feeds your finance department with the finance contract on the used car, the vehicle service contract potentially on the used car. And so it feeds each of the dealer's profit centers. It also feeds each of the OEM's profit centers. So it makes it win-win. And by the way, it's also good for the customer. So, to me, it checked all the boxes there. And that's why we've been actively engaged in the vehicle exchange program.
No, it's amazing. I am so appreciative of just the depth that you went in on that topic, because it's in the details, it's in the granularity that you're going to succeed. And you mentioned lifetime value. You mentioned the cost really to acquire a customer, right? And when I think about this from a marketing perspective, I think dealers could do a better job of thinking about their media mix modeling and how they're looking at that. You said you look at your total gross and where that gross provides the most value holistically. If you're looking at your media mix model holistically as well, you'll be able to dial in your strategy, create campaigns to continue to push things like, hey, we buy your car in your local market. And I think there's a lot of dealerships that have the potential to continue to do that. Now, I think we talk about a lot of the technicals, and I think holistically, you can't get anywhere without a great team. And the one thing that I really appreciate about you, Brian, is how you talk about culture and people. Yeah, you might come across as being a little bit tough around the edges sometimes, but you know what? That's what we need today. We need some transparency. We need to have people who are going to lead and motivate.
Where Have All the Leaders Gone is a great book by Lee Iacocca, and it is so darn true. It's an old book now, but where have all the leaders gone? And so I appreciate those comments. It's not about being raw or tough or any of that stuff. I think as a leader, we have an obligation to do just that. You don't need permission to lead. You can be a salesperson and be a leader. You can be a manager and be a leader. You should be a leader if you're a manager. My business card has no title on it. There's no title there. I don't call myself a leader or the general manager or vice president. I'm a coach on the field, and I expect our players to perform. And thankfully, I've attracted like-minded individuals that, hey, let's go get it. And some of my guys, they get a kick in the butt, and they understand that, and they're good with it because it's never not deserved. It's always something like that. And my business partner, my boss, Paul Singer, before he passed away, was extremely tough on me. He was appreciative of what I did and what I contributed. He was tough on me, and he was always fair, and he always level-headed. Always, he was elegant, eloquent, but tough. And he expected performance. He expected results. Results is what we're here for. And I sort of carry on with a different style, but I carry on that tradition. And the culture at the dealership is one. I've got our guys convinced we are the New York Yankees. We're the New York Yankees or the Chicago Bulls during the heyday. Right? Our uniforms need to look the part. The field needs to be lined correctly before the fans get to the stadium. And we are expected to win. We are expected to win. That's what we do. We win.
I love that. I think I resonate with that. You got to wake up. You got to want it. You want to organize yourself and achieve excellence. We talk about achieving excellence both from a digital perspective, but you have to do it with your people. You have to do it with your mindset. And I love to see even your investment in health and your investment in making sure that it is body, mind, spirit. And if there's one thing I know about automotive as an industry, we are committed to this, and we are truly athletes, right, in this space. Are there any? I think I know this is like kind of rounding out our topics on people and culture, but are there any ways that you think a dealer principal, if you were to inspire them today to give them tips, like how do you better motivate your people, on like a Saturday, sales, meeting and so forth? Like, what are some of those core tips or the message that you try to put in your people every day to succeed and hit these goals?
We've been having Saturday morning meetings on Clubhouse now for the past 3 weeks, and it was pretty funny how it happened by accident. I love getting together with the team on Saturday morning. That's about, hey, let's go, getting everyone stoked up. It's not beat up sessions. It's about getting the fire in the belly going. And with the advent of COVID, we really haven't been able to have that. And a couple of my guys are saying, I miss that, I miss that, I miss that. And some of the managers don't miss it, but the sales guys miss it because that can be tough on the managers, and you have high expectations of them. And I like to gear, know your audience, and the audience on a Saturday morning sales meeting is mostly the salespeople. Although all the managers are there, I want to speak to them. And some of the managers get sort of in the way of that. But I said, let's have a meeting on Clubhouse. I think a leader's job is to develop people. And so I thought I could introduce my entire staff to this new platform that maybe they'll run into another leader that they resonate with, that they can learn something from, that would benefit us here. I'm not afraid of them seeing somebody smarter than me. There are a lot of people out there smarter than me, and I want them to see those things. So I had everybody log on to this meeting at 9:00 in the morning, and I had a wonderful friend, Michelle McLean, was going to host the room, moderate the room for me. And at 5 minutes before the meeting started, Michelle said, Brian, did you want this to be a private meeting? I said, yes, it's just our staff. She goes, there are already 250 people in the room. Oh, no. Okay, well, we'll make it a public meeting. That's okay. Let me just take a quick look through my notes and take out the stuff that I think is proprietary to Paragon. And it was mostly about, what is leadership today? What can you look for in leadership today? And about a half an hour into the meeting, I looked and we had 700 people in the room for a completely unannounced, unadvertised event. And so I would submit to you that people are looking for leadership. People are yearning for, hey, maybe you can help me on my path. And my mission right now is to help other people on their paths, to develop the next generation of leaders and high performers. And you're not going to make hard people by being soft on them. And I tell you that we had that meeting had 700 people. The next meeting a week later had 1,100 people. And last week's meeting, we had over 2,200 people in the room at one time. We actually had 10,000 people go through the meeting in the hour and a half that we were there, lasting and staying over 18 minutes. And according to Clubhouse, that's a pretty good hold on that audience. So, there is a yearning for coach. There is a yearning for information and for leadership. And to the extent that we had a very good panel of people there, we had a diverse group of people that could provide that leadership on this platform. And I think that platform, Clubhouse, fits with our brand essence. It's frictionless. It's very easy to get in. It's very easy to quietly leave. I don't have to log in. I don't have to just click on the app, click into a room, and you're in. And I'm in control, right? That's something our customers want. Shared control of the process. So as a consumer of Clubhouse, I'm in control. I don't like what you're saying. I can go to another room, just scroll up, scroll down, and pick a room that's what I'm looking for. So I'm a student there, and I'm learning, but it's a fascinating, fascinating platform.
I agree, and I look forward to jumping in on that meeting and listening to you speak and be almost a part of your team indirectly, which I think is such a powerful thing. And we yearn for leadership, we yearn for community, and I think the app and the format there is such a creative idea that happened almost accidentally, but now is so important. Now, before we wrap up, because I know we're coming at time here, I'd love to provide you the opportunity. If someone were looking for resources, tips, or we're looking to reach out and contact you, Brian, what's the best way to communicate, with you today digitally?
Oh, I think I'm all over the place. LinkedIn under Brian Benstock, or Instagram under Brian Benstock, or there's a website where we have some video data, brianbenstock.com. I'm pretty accessible, and certainly I love talking automotive with people that want to further their career, whether here or at another dealership, and so I dedicate a couple hours every week to being accessible for things like that, especially for young people that are truly interested in investing their time and learning the car business. I think that's a very great opportunity for me to be able to recruit, hire, train, motivate the next generation of winners.
No, and like you've done today, I appreciate your time, Brian, on the show. Again, guys, this is to our audience, another episode of Designing Digital Excellence. Brian Benstock, and we'll see you next episode. Thank you very much.